So we've seen now that there can be a variety of problems with any kind of storage solution. So let's take a look now at some of the causes why you might be encountering those problems. And media failure certainly is one of the most common. Now, with respect to that, you see the first entry here is human error. And that in and of itself is not really a media failure, but at the end of the day, the result is the same. You aren't able to access the files that you need. So although the media has not failed, the data is gone. So accidental overwriting and or deletions certainly might be the problem. So you need to make sure that users are not able to overwrite files or delete them by mistake. Now, it should be noted if it is a matter of deletion, you have to go to quite extensive lengths to actually delete a file from a hard drive. So if it is deleted, there are a number of disk utilities that you can use to recover any kind of information that was deleted. Once it's overwritten, however, then it is exceptionally difficult to get a file back because deleting doesn't actually remove anything. The information on the disk still stays there. It just marks the sector as reusable and then writes over it the next time. But once it has been written over, then you cannot really recover that original information. Now, damage to the media surfaces, such as scratches, definitely will cause media failures. The disks operate at very close ranges and very small spaces, and they're very delicate, to say the least, so they're very easily scratched. So any kind of damage to the actual surface will certainly cause problems. Now, if the entire drive fails, there can, of course, be a number of mechanical failures behind that. And the head crash is certainly the more common one. But the read-write arm has a little head at the end that discharges to write the value to the disk. And it floats ever so minusculely above the surface of the disk. It's not supposed to actually touch it. That's where the term crash comes from. If it actually touches the surface, then that results in a head crash, and it simply is unable to read and or write at that point. Motor failures, obviously there's moving parts. It's a spinning disk, so the motor itself can fail. And power surges, power spikes, and any kind of system crash is usually the reason behind some of those problems. The controller might fail at any given time due to electrostatic discharge, or ESD. And again, all of the components in a computer operate at very low power values. So a simple shock, a charge of static electricity, absolutely can overload some of those circuits. An HBA failure, same idea. That's a host bus adapter for connecting to storage area networks. You simply may have the same kind of failure on one of those. They're all internal components that operate at very low power values when you get right down to the tiny circuitries in there. So electrostatic discharge can absolutely cause problems with either of those. Loose connectors, just simply verify that the device itself is seated correctly, that all the screws are in place that are supposed to hold it there, because they do tend to vibrate. So you want to make sure that the connectors are in there solidly and that everything is screwed down. The cable problems, if you do discover that the disk itself seems to be fine, then swap the cable out for one that you've tested and that you know is good. Misconfiguration certainly can be the problem as well. So not so much within the operating system, but on the device itself. So you might want to go into your BIOS settings to ensure that the boot sequence is correct. Make sure that it's seeking the appropriate drive to load the operating system. And a lot of the physical devices still have jumper settings on them as well, which designate its role or its position. And the CMOS setting is, again, just in the actual BIOS. You might have the correct boot sequence, but it might not be reading the information from the drive correctly in terms of its configuration. So you just want to verify all of that to make sure all of that's correct. And if it is a SCSI device, they need to be terminated as well. So make sure that the terminators are set correctly on your final device. Common other problems, boot sector issues, any kind of malware Incorrect use of partition manager utilities or any kind of drive configuration software can absolutely corrupt the boot sector. So you do want to be aware of those issues. And if it's something in the file system, just the actual files themselves, then you might want to look for a virus, of course. And it just simply might indicate an impending drive failure. So as soon as you do start to see these problems popping up, it's usually a good idea to just replace the drive. They almost never just get better on their own, if you will. They almost always just get worse. So as soon as you encounter any kind of drive failures, it's usually a good idea to simply replace the drive as quickly as possible. Now, if it's just a virus and you can clean it, then obviously that's not a problem with the physical device itself. But definitely things that you need to keep on top of, and these are some of the common problems that you'll encounter in almost any environment.